After the release of the second film in May 1997, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Spielberg was busy with other projects when asked about the possibility of a third Jurassic Park film. He responded that it would give him a tremendous headache just to think about it. Spielberg had no intention of returning to the Jurassic Park series as a director, stating that the films were very difficult to make. He had been satisfied with directing the previous two films and felt that the third film needed someone new to take over. After the release of the first and second film, Joe Johnston, a friend of Spielberg's, again asked about directing a Jurassic Park sequel, and he would get his opportunity come 2001 with his film Jurassic Park 3.
He says it's a bad idea.
What's a bad idea?
What was that?
That's a Tyrannosaurus.
I don't think so. It sounds bigger.
Let them fight.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, Jim.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chills and Thrills. Connor here with you, along with my co-host Chris. And today we are looking at Jurassic Park 3. So Chris, I know you said that you've seen this in theaters as well as I did. And you said you hadn't watched this one in quite a while. So maybe let me see, I'll defer to you and see what your theater experience was like, if you remember that as a young guy, and then how you felt about it on the most recent rewatch.
Yeah. I saw it twice in theaters. An early movie that I saw twice in theaters because I would have, maybe The Phantom Menace I saw twice, I think. And then I know I've seen, and then I saw like Lord of the Rings, all of those movies twice, but that was even after this. So this is like maybe the second movie ever that I saw more than once in a theater, something like that. And technically, I saw Godzilla 98 1.5 times in theaters because the first time I saw it, when he gets shot with the submarine missiles and he's underwater, my mom was like, it's over, and like rushed us out. And we're like, the movie's not over. And like, and so I saw Godzilla 98 1.5 times in theaters. But yeah, as a 9-year-old, I absolutely loved it. As a 9-year-old, is one of the best movies ever. Oh, it's my favorite. It's the best one. It's better than the first two. So much more action. Whatever. As an adult, it's not that. It's not bad. I do love, like, it's a great pace of a movie. Like, it wastes no time. 90 minutes, 92 minutes with the credits, and you're talking close to 10 minutes of credits on a movie like this. So it definitely isn't. You could say it's a little thin and that there's not enough going on, but I mean, they pack a punch into this movie, and yeah, you're kind of just moving from one dino sequence to the next, but that's kind of also the point. It's sort of it's never going to be a classic like the first one, and I don't know if it doesn't have any of that kind of Spielberg magic like the second one, but this is a nice chance to kind of see a sort of normal Jurassic Park movie that's just like a normal having fun with the dinosaurs. Let's put people on the island, have an adventure. Like, you could imagine some kind of TV series or something where the plot of the series is just random adventures on Dino Island, or random people coming there, crashing there, living there, what have you. Lost, but with Isla Sorna. You could imagine, or Gilligan's Island with Isla Sorna. You could imagine something like that. So this is just like a fun little like what if kind of side plot adventure that could happen on a dinosaur island. And so it's fun for that. It's not a bad movie at all. It's a really, it's almost a textbook example of like a great like B+ creature feature kind of movie. Not some all-time classic, not some great, but it's a lot of fun.
And this is one of those movies, like I stated in the last episode, the second and third films of this franchise are kind of like the black sheeps, of the franchise, at least so far from what I hear. But this film has definitely gained kind of like that cult following for the people out there that do really, really love this one and hold this to a high standard. And I got to see this in theaters. Me and my dad went because when I was younger, I was 9 going on I would have been 9 and turned 10 the year this came out. So it I mean this is I had fun with this in
Wait
theaters.
a
There
minute,
were
aren't you younger than me?
or no, this 2001, isn't it?
2001. Yeah, I turned
2001.
9.
I would have been 8 going on 9. Sorry.
There we go. Get your math right.
Hey, long day at work. That's all I do is math. But no, I had fun with this in theaters, and I mean, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about a little bit, a couple of like the things that I remember and scenes, like things that made me kind of like, and like my dad kind of surprised me in theaters. So like there was a scene, of course, where the T-Rex and Spinosaurus fight, and my dad, I remember sitting next to him and leaning over to me and saying T-Rex is gonna kick his ass. And Spinosaurus ends up breaking the T-Rex's neck, killing it. And me, I didn't remember the Spinosaurus actually snapping like the T-Rex's neck. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention fully, and I just thought like he might have like knocked him out or something. Because I remember rewatching it down the road later as a little guy and saying and thinking like, oh, he's dead. Because as soon as the Spinosaurus does snap the T-Rex's neck, I remember hearing my dad say, "Oh shit." And it was
Yeah.
just as like a little kid that it was hilarious to me for my dad to be in theaters like locked in and like, oh, he's gonna kick his ass and be completely wrong, because I was thinking the same thing as a kid too, like, oh, T-Rex, like he's got this
Yeah.
easy. But it was just a fun experience to have my dad saying that while watching one of the movies that I'm just like thrilled to be in the theater watching.
Yeah, they definitely like that's the audience that they made that sequence for, for everyone to just kind of be like, "Oh my gosh, T-Rex is going to show up and wreck shop." And then, well, how do we make the Spinosaurus seem imposing and better and escalate things, because the T-Rex was the mascot of the franchise basically. So it was that sort of early 2000s idea of, oh, well, we'll just introduce a dinosaur that's bigger and badder than the T-Rex, and that'll get everyone all hyped and excited. And it stings me to say that literally the entire duration of the T-Rex in this movie is basically 60 seconds. From the moment they come across the carcass and see the T-Rex to the moment the T-Rex is a corpse on the ground is essentially 60 seconds. And it's like that is brutal. And that's kind of annoying, It's like you get what they were going for, but it's like I don't really like what they were going for.
Especially coming off the first two, like, they made the T-Rex in the first two like so like badass, like top-notch dinosaur. And I feel like the Spinosaurus just dispatches of him so quickly. Like you see the T-Rex like grab him kind of like back of the head, neck area, and slam the Spinosaurus to the ground. And as a fan, you're thinking, all right, hell yeah, let's go. And then Spinosaurus gets free, and you're like, wait a minute, like of all like these documentaries, because I used to watch dinosaur documentaries as a kid. I was that big nerd, and they're saying that like the T-Rex has like the strongest bite force of any creature that ever lived, and it's like, okay, well, how did this Spinosaurus escape that? And it's just it drove me nuts.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm pretty sure, even the facts of the time, I think it was very much like they were kind of upscaling this Spinosaurus. Like it was very much a thing where it's like they found the Spinosaurus like and then they kind of like Hollywoodified it to just be like, "Oh, that looks cool. We'll make it the bigger better T-Rex, it's got bigger better claws. It's got a cool profile because of the fin." Like they were just looking for that, like what could be the new icon of the series. And it's like you can't really replace the icon of a series. The mascot kind of is the mascot. Like it kind of just is what it is. Like Superman's logo is never gonna not be an S, like it's just what it is. And and to some people it's like, oh cool, awesome, Spinosaurus is great. But then, you know, to others it just kind you just kind of feel that like it feels that like disingenuous, like, oh, they want us to think the Spinosaurus is so awesome, so they just make it take out the T-Rex really easy. It's like, well, that's stupid. It's like you're just trying to put over the new guy by making the old legend, look lame in comparison, So it's just like one of those things. What a ripoff. My favorite fan theory associated with that T-Rex, though, is that some people have postulated that perhaps the baby Rex with the injured leg from the Lost World is the one that grew up to be that T-Rex that gets killed by the Spinosaurus. And I traumatized a friend once when I made that suggestion because they hated the idea of that baby growing up to get its neck snapped. I was like, the color palette seems like it maybe checks out. Who knows?
Well, I mean, and don't get me wrong, because like as I've watched this, you know, after we got out of the theaters and it came out on DVD and whatnot, like I watched it as a younger guy, and the Spinosaurus grew on me a lot. I had the action figure toys when I was 8, 9 years old. Like just I used to like to collect that stuff, even leave them in the boxes sometimes, and just like have them in like on the shelves in my room. And I mean, Spinosaurus in this film looks phenomenal. I love the design. So don't get me wrong on that. He's probably, I mean, right. I mean, the T Rex will always be my favorite from these films, but the Spinosaurus is a very close, like second or third behind, like either right in front of or right behind the Raptors from these films. So I mean, it's not like it's a terrible dinosaur to come into this film. It's just how they introduced him with killing off a Rex. That's what I'm not okay with. Other than that, I love the
Yeah.
Spinosaurus.
And I think in terms of the lore, it is meant to be that the Spinosaurus was an early attempt at them sort of getting a little experimental with the dinosaurs that they're making. All of the dinosaurs are sort of these hybrids using the frog DNA and other animal and reptile DNA to complete the sequence gaps and all of that. And I think this in retroactively, I think this has become like one of those. The Spinosaurus is an example of of early experimentations of them getting like, well, how wild can we make the dinosaurs depending on how we mix and match the different DNA strands and traits and things like that. So in the lore of the universe, this is sort of the precursor to what would give us something like the Indominus Rex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still love it. I have fun with this film, and let me give you some quick background on the film of how this one came to be. Jurassic Park 3 is a 2001 American science fiction action film directed by Joe Johnston and written by Peter Buckman, Alexander Payne, and Jim Taylor. It is, of course, the third installment in the Jurassic Park franchise and the final film in the original Jurassic Park trilogy, following The Lost World Jurassic Park from 1997. It is also the first film in the franchise not to be directed by Steven Spielberg, as well as the first not to be based on a novel by Michael Crichton. However, the film features characters and ideas by Crichton. Sam Neill and Laura Dern reprise their roles from the first film, and new cast members include William H. Macy, Tej Leone, Alessandro Nivola, Trevor Morgan, and Michael Jeter. The plot follows a divorced couple who's deceived paleontologist Alan Grant into helping them find their son, who has gone missing on Isla Sorna. After the release of Spielberg's Jurassic Park, Joe Johnston expressed interest in directing a sequel, which Spielberg agreed to. Universal Pictures announced the third film in June 1998, with a release scheduled for mid-2000. A draft written by Peter Buckman was rejected 5 weeks ahead of filming in a favor of a simpler story or idea suggested by David Koepp, the writer of the previous two films. Payne and Taylor were hired to rewrite the earlier script by Buckman, who made further revisions to their draft. Filming lasted 5 months, beginning in Hawaii in August 2000 before moving to California. A final draft of the script was never completed during production, a circumstance Johnson considered quitting over. Jurassic Park 3 features a combination of computer-generated and animatronic dinosaurs. A Spinosaurus replaces the Tyrannosaurus from the previous two films as the main dinosaur antagonist, and Jurassic Park 3 premiered on July 16, 2001, and was theatrically released on July 18th. Despite receiving mixed reviews from critics, the film was a box office success, becoming the 8th highest grossing film of 2001. However, it is the lowest grossing installment in the franchise to date. In 2015, it was followed by Jurassic World, which would start the sequel trilogy of the same name. So there's a little background on Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, I feel for Joe Johnston because he's a director that he's got some really solid films under his belt. You know, The Rocketeer is famously underrated. The first Jumanji movie, you know, October Sky, Captain America: The First Avenger is one of his best, I think. Jurassic Park 3, for all of its faults and struggles, you know, he's got this sort of, you know, he aspires to that kind of, like, you can feel the inspirations of Indiana Jones a little bit in his Captain America movie. You know, he is, you know, he's kind of aiming for, like, I don't like to say like, oh, he's Spielberg light, you know, but like you can tell like he's aspiring to be that kind of you know, he's a pretty versatile director, and it's a shame that he was kind of saddled because like the Wolfman movie is another movie that he was the director of, but like he came on like basically after the movie was like a complete and total mess just to kind of like get it done, you know. And it's a shame that he was kind of saddled with this sort of situation where like 5 weeks before filming and you're rejecting a script, and then you're going for something simpler and like cranking away at it, and you never get a finished script during the production. Like the fact that this movie manages to have, you know, one criticism of it is that it feels like just like a bunch of scenes that are just kind of stitched together just to have like this fun dinosaur sequence, and this would be a fun dinosaur sequence, and this would be a fun dinosaur sequence. And like the movement and progression of a narrative in between all that, there's not really much of a narrative. It's just like a very short survival story. And it's like, yeah, it's like when you don't have a finished script, when you're not really telling a story, you're just kind of like doing a fun dinosaur movie. That's kind of all you can do. So he's there as the director to just kind of like, you can see him just trying to make the most of the sequences that he's got, you know, make the most of each scene because he doesn't have a ton to work with in terms of the human plot, you know, and it's a shame.
It is, because do I think this is the worst of the six films we have so far? I guess we'll have to wait until we get to that sixth film and see where our rankings lie. But I don't think any of these films are bad. I mean, this is the first two films are over 2 hours long. So then we come to this one and we get an hour and a half. We get very, very quick, like, paced film. We get right into the dinosaurs, and we get quite a bit of dinosaur action in this. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, it has to be somewhere around like 30 minutes of dinosaur action in this, I would say, probably a third of the film. And I mean, it's just it's a faster paced film, but it's not directed as well as the two previous films that are, you know, that half hour longer.
Yeah, you get some of those great dinosaur blockbuster thrills, but what you're missing is, you know, great, you know, moments. You know, now you're John Hammond from The Lost World. You know, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. You know, there's nothing sort of like the meat on the bones. There's not really a whole lot there. This could have been like this same film, you slash the budget, make the acting all worse, make the direction more plain, and like this could have easily just been like a sci-fi channel dinosaur movie, you know? Like if you just made all of the production aesthetics worse and cheap, it's the same kind of thing. Like the human plot, like there's just not a lot going on there. There's not much of a plot going on. It's just a group of people moving along the island and surviving from one dinosaur set piece to the other. It's like that's fine. Like no one's really complaining about that. But it's like, you know, we're just kind of doing some dinosaur movie things here. We're not. It's not. It doesn't. You know, I hate to say things like it doesn't really feel like a film, but like some of the stuff just feels like it turns on a dime and will just randomly happen. Will randomly happen. You know, you see the Spinosaurus blast through this huge perimeter fence that is designed to keep dinosaurs in, but then they go into like a warehouse and bolt some doors, and it can't get through, or it gives up, and it's like this weird thing where it's like, well, you know, they needed to go from that sequence to that next sequence, and this was like the simple way to do it. You know, that was like the shortest, quickest way to do it. Well, the Spinosaurus gonna break through that fence because that's a great moment, but like then they're gonna immediately evade him by shutting these doors, when it's like the logical thing would have been he doesn't make it through the fence, you know. But that's such a big great moment, they just don't have anything that follow up with it. Doesn't lead to some amazing Spinosaurus sequence after that, you know. It's just kind of one of these things where you can tell they were working with pieces, and they were just kind of cobbling, you know, just kind of cobbling the pieces together.
Absolutely. I 100% understand what you're getting at there. It's like they're almost jumping from kind of like if you would say like they're jumping from back lot to back lot, you know, it's this scene to
Mm,
this scene to this scene or
hmm
that it I absolutely I agree with you. And I mean, I don't know if it was, you know, too many writers in the room or if the director kind of just fumbled this one. I mean, I've never really heard anything about the backgrounds on that. So
hmm
maybe I'll do a deep dive one day.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was one of those things where, one of my favorite quotes about movie making from, when they were talking from a documentary about making Alien 3 said the worst thing about Alien 3 was that they weren't making a movie, they were making a release date, and it feels like someone penciled in this movie for this release date. And when you got the release date locked in, everything's go. So then you're changing the script dramatically 5 weeks before filming, which is unheard of. Then you're never having a final draft at any point during filming, which is crazy, especially for a giant blockbuster movie. These things, you look at the original Jurassic Park and it feels like one of the most finely dialed in blockbuster movies ever. Like it feels like everyone was on point, everyone knew what they were doing, they were handling it carefully because they were breaking new ground and doing something big. So everything was highly prepared. And then we're in this age now where this is almost similar to how a lot of blockbuster movies are made nowadays, where throw money at it, throw money at it, throw money at it, and get the thing done. And it's like, well, then you end up with a really sloppy movie. That's all there is to that. It's no one person's fault.
All right. Well, why don't we get into the good stuff? We'll get into a trailer. We'll get a plot synopsis read off, come back with some numbers, fun facts, and get into our favorite categories on Jurassic Park 3.
Sounds good.
All our theories about raptor intelligence, what they were capable of, we weren't even close. They were smart. They were smarter than dolphins or whales. They were smarter than primates.
I have a proposition I'd like to discuss with you. I've chartered an airplane to fly us over Isla Sorna, and we'd like you to be our guide. We'd love to make a contribution to your research here.
We have a landing strip up ahead. You want me to put it down?
What do you mean, set her down? You can't land here. What are you talking about?
Hold on, I can
You
explain.
cannot
if you just...
land on this island.
Oh my God!
What was that?
That's a Tyrannosaurus.
I don't think so. It sounds bigger.
Follow me! Wait, he's coming back! Head for the tree!
This is how you make dinosaurs?
Oh, this is how you play God. He's calling for help.
They could talk to each other.
To a degree we never imagined.
They set a trap. They actually set a trap.
Probably won't get off this island alive. Oh my God.
What is it?
It's a bird cage.
For what?
Paleontologist Alan Grant struggles to secure funding for his velociraptor research, where he attempts to prove his hypothesis that they were intellectually and socially advanced. Instead, he finds himself rebuffing the public's obsession with the events on Isla Nublar and the InGen incident in San Diego. He receives encouragement to continue from his now married ex-girlfriend Ellie Sadler and his assistant Billy Brennan, who uses 3D printing to replicate a velociraptor larynx. Wealthy couple Paul and Amanda Kirby offer to fund his research in return for a guided aerial tour of Isla Sorna, claiming they have permission to fly there. Alan reluctantly agrees, flying there with Billy, two of the Kirby's mercenary associates, Udesky and Cooper, and their pilot, Nash. When the Kirbys try to have Nash land the plane, Alan protests and is knocked unconscious by Cooper. He awakens to find they have landed, and the Kirbys refuse to leave, until a Spinosaurus approaches them. They attempt to escape, but the dinosaur attacks their plane during takeoff and kills Cooper. The plane crashes in the forest, and the Spinosaurus kills Nash and swallows Paul's satellite phone. The survivors flee, encountering a Tyrannosaurus, which is promptly defeated by the Spinosaurus as the humans escape. The Kirbys reveal they are a divorced middle-class couple searching for their son Eric and Amanda's boyfriend Ben Hildebrand, who have been missing for 8 weeks and were last seen illegally parasailing by the island. Government agencies declined to help, so they deceived Alan to secure his assistance, mistakenly believing he had experience on Isla Sorna. The group searches for Eric and Ben, finding the latter's corpse attached to the parasail near a velociraptor nest. They discover the InGen compound, where they are attacked by a pack of velociraptors, who kill Udesky. Alan is separated from the rest of the group, but is saved from the raptors by Eric, who has been sheltering in a supply truck. The following morning, Alan and Eric reunite with Billy and Eric's parents and narrowly escape the Spinosaurus again. Alan finds Billy stole velociraptor eggs, which resulted in the earlier attacks. Billy hoped to sell the eggs to fund their dig site, which Alan disapproves of, but keeps the eggs regardless, hoping the raptors may spare the group if they are returned. The group enters an aviary and is attacked by a flock of pteranodons, one of which takes Eric to its nest to feed him to its young. Billy rescues Eric using the parasail, but is seemingly killed while the rest escape by boat along an adjacent river. They retrieve the satellite phone, and Grant contacts Ellie for help while they are attacked once again by the Spinosaurus. The following day, the group hears a helicopter overhead and arrives at the coast, but are ambushed by the velociraptors who have come for the eggs. Alan, finding the replicated larynx in Billy's bag, uses it to confuse the pack. Upon hearing distant helicopters, the raptors reclaim their eggs and retreat. The U.S. Marines and Navy, summoned by Ellie, land on the beach and rescue the survivors. On a helicopter, they discover that an injured Billy has also been rescued. They watch the now freed pteranodons fly alongside them as they leave the island.
Wonderfully read, sir. Wonderfully. I have left that in on every one so far.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love it.
Oh, very well read. That one wasn't too shabby. Could have went into a little more detail, eh?
Yeah, I know. They just like the Spinosaurus is like a footnote in this plot synopsis, and the Spinosaurus is there. And once again, by the Spinosaurus, it's kind of the main villain of the thing, and they don't do a whole heck of a lot of focusing on it.
How about we hop over to some numbers here on Jurassic Park 3?
Sounds good.
Jurassic Park 3 had a budget of $93 million and a box office return of $368.8 million. So, Chris, what is that in today's numbers in our inflation?
Yeah, so that would be about a $168 million budget nowadays. So as we can see, even adjusting these all to 2025, we can see that the budgets of the three, adjusted for inflation, keep escalating. The first film would have been about $135 million, and the second film would have been about $145 million, and this third film would have been about $168 million. So that's showing that, when people, the budgets of Hollywood blockbusters kind of are escalating at this dramatic rate. And nowadays it feels like everything costs 250, 300 million, that box office of 368 million would adjust to about 668 million today. And so again, when you bring up the adjusted number for all three, roughly accounting for, $20-25, you go from about, 2.4 billion total for the first film, 1.2 billion for the second film, and then about 600 and almost 670 million for the third film. So almost half as much as number two. So it is a pretty steady decline. And even not factoring any inflation at all, and you're just going raw numbers, you're basically going from a film that made 900 million to a film that made 600 million to a film that made 300 million, give or take. And that's a pretty that's an interesting loss, roughly 300 million, give or take, from each film to film, because that's also the the box office loss from each Jurassic World movie to the next. You go from 1.6 billion, 1.3 billion, 1 billion, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, do you think that if this would have been, say, by chance, like, another Steven Spielberg directed film, does how much does that box office increase, or do they does that add another 100 million, or
I think it's a better if it's a Spielberg 3, who knows what a Spielberg JP3 would look like, but just by dint of, hey, directed by Steven Spielberg in the trailers, and then having his talents throughout the process, and also, his ability to kind of, get what he wants. Someone like Joe Johnston, if something's hurt, putting him in a bad spot, it's like, well, what do? You're gonna quit? You're gonna lose the job? Someone like Spielberg has the opportunity. People want to make Steven Spielberg happy when they work with him. They want to say like, hey, Steven, we'll correct this situation. We'll postpone the release date. We'll change this. We'll do that. We'll make this work so that it works for Steven Spielberg. When it's someone else as the director, it's, well, our movie's coming out in July of 2001, and if you can't do it, we'll get someone who can, kind of a thing. So I think it just would have had this trickle down impact of being just an overall much more well handled production. I think it would have been a better movie. I don't think it pulls the Lost World numbers. I think it's just one of those things where you were seeing diminishing returns at this point. Maybe a 500 million, something like that. But it just doesn't feel, unless there was some kind of big spark that Spielberg would have had to really make it something special and like the grandest of all three in some big way. I don't know. He kind of did the dinosaur on the mainland thing from number 2. So, you know, if you teleport the script for Jurassic World back to the year 2000 and have Spielberg direct it in 2001, maybe that is something bigger and better. Who knows? But it's hard to say. It definitely doesn't seem like anything could have kept it from kind of diminishing from the first 2 the way it did.
Yeah, I just figured, with his name attached to it, it probably would have been a bigger film, because I mean, you hear Steven Spielberg and that name, Joe Johnston. You probably don't know that name.
Yeah, it would have been more hyped. The other films coming out in the season might have moved away from it a bit, so that it would have had less competition. So you open bigger, you get more hype, you probably got a better movie, you've got other movies scheduling away from it a bit more so that there's less to see. It's like all of those trickle down effects that like they lead to the pile up of it probably being quite a bigger movie,
Absolutely. I'll continue with a couple more numbers here. As always, this film had a 5.9 out of 10 rating on IMDb, a 50% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 42% rating on Metacritic, and then 82% of Google users liked this film.
Yeah, Google's a little high on it. Google's a little too generous, maybe. It's weird to hear like 50-50 from Rotten Tomatoes, because that sounds so bad, but like it really is the kind of movie that even, you can imagine half the people kind of digging it, half the people kind of not. But even the movie itself, you can kind of make this kind of look at it like yeah, like half of it is like, you watch the movie and it's like, yeah, like there's about half of this movie that it's like half the time it's working and half the time it's like, okay, this is feeling a little silly or slapped together or just empty, so it's like a 50% might not be the worst thing, because it's like, yeah, half of it really clicks, and half the time I'm really enjoying it, and the other half of the time I'm kind of really questioning it.
Well, my last number for you here is there are 6 human deaths in this film, averaging to 1 death every about 15 and a half minutes.
Yeah, and I think they're all in like the first third of the movie, like once you get to a certain point, there's no more humans that die, so.
Yeah, who is is it Udusky? Who is our last one? He goes from the Raptors.
Yeah.
That might be
Well,
our
'cause it's
last
like,
death.
if you ask me, you say 6, and I'm like, Cooper, Nash, Udesky, that's 3, and what? Ben Hildebrand is 4. I don't know where they're getting. I mean, the guys on the boat, I guess, the 2 or 3 guys on the boat in the opening of the movie. But then you're talking about half the deaths happening right there in the opening of the movie, because like once you start getting moving, it's Cooper, Nash, and Udesky. That's it.
Yeah,
And then
of course we find.
Yeah.
We find Ben later. Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
Two of those deaths are right away within the first 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah, and one's off screen. So you only get, really, as far as kill scenes, you really only get 3, and it's, And it's always like you're into the tropes now where it's like, oh, do the cast of like 6 to 10 characters and one of them's a lady, and you're gonna kill off your obvious minor characters early, and then all the main characters that you like are gonna make it because like that's kind of like family blockbuster rules. It's like you're not really gonna, they don't even have the guts to kill off Billy. Like the one, that you don't want to make the kids cry and make anyone too upset. Like we still want a happy ending. Like once you start to do these kind of movies, these blockbuster kind of movies in that big studio setting, you don't get to kind of have the fun that they can have when they're lower budgets, and you can kind of do the slasher movie thing where you kill off everyone but one or two characters and kill off surprising favorites and all this stuff. It's like, no, it's like you always get some studio board exec that, and the feedback and the focus groups and the committees, that are like, we want people to be happy, we want this to be a good time, we don't want kids crying, like all that stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to bring up is I don't know how Billy got out of it, how he survived. I mean, when I was younger, I was glad he did. I mean, as an adult, I was like, okay, I liked his character. I'm not against him surviving, but the big question is how.
Yeah, I mean, like, because animals and wild beasts, like, you know they're pretty vicious. You don't think that they would necessarily like, like I guess the pteranodons, like, I don't know, like if like there's some animals that are man eaters and there are some that are like not, but they can kill a man. So it's like these pteranodons, it's like, did they just kind of like, you know peck and poke away at him till they felt sort of satisfied or defended or content, and then just kind of like leave, and so then he's just like barely alive. It's like you don't know how much killer instinct they would have. You would think, like, are they just going to go until there's chunks of meat left? I don't know. So it just does feel like one of those things where it feels like a reshoot thing. It feels like
A
Billy
test
was left for
audience.
yeah, Billy was left for dead, and then they're like, hey, we can do a couple of insert shots inside the helicopter to show that they found him. And then it's like a happier note. And it's like, okay, if you say so.
Maybe the water he was in, the river, maybe it was just flowing too fast for the pteranodons. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? And it's like, but then you're compounding things. It's like, okay, not only did he survive and they gave up and he went downriver, but then like the people coming to the island to rescue everybody, like, found him before and has them all bandaged up and waiting for them in the chopper. Like, it's like, so they must have come across him first, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting.
It is. Well, let me get into some fun facts for you on Jurassic Park 3, and then we'll get into our good stuff, our favorites. My first one for you here is the effects crew used 250 gallons of oatmeal to simulate the Spinosaurus droppings when they were digging through the droppings to find the phone.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a foul moment. In the immortal words of Ian Malcolm, that is one big pile of shit.
And a lot of it.
Yeah.
Not just one, probably about 10 of them.
Yeah.
Sir Sam Neill has come to this film's defense, saying that the film got unfair treatment from critics and thinks that it's a pretty damn good film, in his words.
Yeah, I mean, I would say pretty damn good. It's not great. It's not very good, but pretty damn good. Yeah, there are far worse creature features out there and far worse made monster movies and dinosaur movies for sure. But when you're amongst this franchise, pretty damn good isn't the best. Isn't very great.
When you're coming off of greatness.
Yeah, or when there is greatness reached within your own franchise.
Absolutely, exactly. According to an interview with William H. Macy, he said this movie's animatronic Spinosaurus had a 1,000 horsepower motor, and the creature could turn its head twice the force of gravity with the tip of its nose moving at a speed of more than 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. I do long for the days where movies like this had these like huge animatronics and puppets and things of that nature, these like big powerful pieces of machinery playing the dinosaurs. I feel like imagine if like those sort of trends had been continued for the 20 plus years since this movie, what kind of cool contraptions and animatronics and interesting things we'd be seeing in the movies all the time now.
Well, I was always one of the kids, like, I always liked watching the special features to, like, see the
Hmm.
people working on the animatronics and, like, actually how large they were in shots, and, like, that stuff is fun, like, seeing, like, CGI being done and stuff like that, like, yeah, it costs a lot and it takes time and a lot of work, but, like, building these, this 15 or 20-foot tall Spinosaurus that or T-Rex that's 35 feet long and has however many horsepower motor to keep it moving and has to be puppeteered, like watching that stuff on special effects or even in the films like that, it just looks so much better. I think it's so much more, it makes the animals seem more alive, and I feel like you get a more genuine reaction out of the actors in the film.
And also it kind of pushes when you just have a fully CGI character, it's kind of existing in its own reality. And when you're cutting between the CGI and the animatronics, it's not only mixing it up a little bit so that you're thinking about it less as a viewer, but also the animators then have something real to kind of match and kind of step up to the plate on. And like when you have a CGI raptor in a shot right next to a close up head of a practical raptor, it's like I think it inspires the CGI work to be better. Like the lighting and the way the lights bouncing off of it, the shadowing and things like that on all of those. Like when you're intercutting with live action photography of a puppet that's getting real light effects on it and is kind of in the scene for real, I think it helps the animation within the scene look better as well, as opposed to just some fully CGI shot.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. I am team animatronic all the way.
Yeah, mix it up. That's all.
Even if you can do, like, nowadays, do 50-50, like, it helps. I think it helps the look of a film when you can do animatronic.
Yeah, get the puppet, like do some facial CGI animation on the puppets, give them a CGI tail on a big body, like you can mix and match it and do pieces, do the CGI arms on an animatronic head or when what have you.
100%. At around 55 minutes into the film, the reveal of the Spinosaurus standing still near the fence is one of Stan Winston's favorite shots. Director
It
Joe
is
John, go
yeah, it
ahead.
is an excellent shot. Sorry, I thought that was the only thing you were saying.
No, no, you're good. That is probably my favorite individual shot in the film, is that Spinosaurus standing there just kind of like ready to go.
It's just imposing.
Yeah, it's a very intimidating shot. Director Joe Johnson had to keep telling the effects team to dial back the animal's movement because he wanted it to be as still as possible before bursting into a run, because that's how a real predator hunts.
Very true. Very true.
So I thought that was fun, and especially coming from, like I said, that's probably my favorite individual shot of the film. So I had to throw that one in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments worth remembering in this movie, even if the movie overall isn't that amazing of a memory. Like there's a lot of like, oh yeah, and that scene, oh yeah, and that scene, and that joke, and that bit. It's a lot of nice little moments.
Most fans of this film or of this franchise will remember the phone ringing and the
Hmm.
family turning around and seeing that Spinosaurus for the first
Yeah,
time, kind of standing there.
indeed, indeed.
When asked why he accepted the role of Paul Kirby, William H. Macy replied, "Because I'm 50 years old and I get to fight dinosaurs." So that I thought that was funny.
That's great. Yeah, this for my young self being 9. I hadn't seen a movie with William H Macy in it before this movie, and for me, every time I saw him everywhere and anywhere else after this, he was always, oh, that guy from Jurassic Park 3. Like that's where I knew him from for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really recognize him either. I recognized his wife from the original Bad Boys. That was about.
Yes, see, for me it was in reverse. I saw the original Bad Boys. Excuse me. Sorry. I saw the original Bad Boys after I saw Jurassic Park 3, and the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, there's something so familiar about this lady. I'm like, her voice, like her look, like where do I know this actress from? And it's like, oh, she was the mom in Jurassic Park 3. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, see, I seen Bad Boys first. I think I seen that maybe a year after it came out, and then I seen this film. But it took me a while to recognize her because shorter hair, different color, it
Hmm.
completely different character, clearly. So
Yeah.
once I caught on, I was like, nope, there it is.
Yeah, fun little bit of casting trivia. The Lost World famously has Julianne Moore and Vince Vaughn in it, and then this film has William H. Macy in it. All three of them were in the Psycho remake from 1998.
Oh, I did not catch on to that. I didn't think of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's fun.
The one that Chris doesn't like. No.
Yeah, I mean, I try, I try hard to like it. I try to talk myself into liking the Psycho remake all the time. I try to enjoy it. It's fun as an experiment to just like, but ugh, it's just hard. It's just hard. It it's just hard to sit through that one. It's just hard to sit through that one.
I won't get you on a tangent about it.
No, I won't. I won't do that here. We'll have a moment for that at some other point.
We absolutely will. I got three more fun facts for you here. And my next one is the Spinosaurus was the largest animatronic ever built at the time. It was 25 feet high. Its length reached around 40 feet long, weighing 24,000 pounds, and was operated by hydraulics. This allowed it to operate while completely submerged in water, and it ended just behind the hip, so any shot that shows more than this had to be computer generated.
Mm, very nice. Very nice. Again, shout out to Stan Winston and all the people working on the practical effects for all of these movies. It's a lost art.
It is because without him, we wouldn't have a lot of the Terminator, the Jurassic Parks, and Jaws, and so many other films that he's done great work
Predator.
on. My next one for you here is the river location in this film was shot on the Universal backlot, and it's the same location used for the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Ooh, wow, that's very interesting. I love Universal Studios like lore and backstory and stuff like that. I have an affinity for that.
I like learning any of it. Any
Yeah.
films that are they're filmed on the same backlot or the same area. It's just it's fun connections that I like to put in here.
Yeah, I like that era of film history a little bit. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, that sort of stuff. I like those classic Universal monsters.
You and me are on the same page of the book with that one. My last one for you here, I debated putting this in numbers because it's just despite being the main dinosaur of the film, the Spinosaurus has just about 3 minutes of screen time.
That feels so low. That feels so low.
Coming
I
off
mean,
of what the T Rex has had from the Lost World,
yeah,
absolutely.
and they might be, and I mean, I'm sure they're kind of playing that game, maybe a bit of like the literal screen time of it being on screen versus like if you're cutting away to the people running away from it, are they then saying, well, that's not Spinosaurus screen time because it's not technically on screen? Like, are we talking about like rendered on screen time footage? Sure, it might be 3 minutes, but I mean, the scene where it attacks the plane and then they run and then it fights the T-Rex, like that sequence alone is like a 10-minute sequence. It's like, yes, the Spinosaurus is sprinkled throughout it and not on screen for every second of it, but it's like I feel like these are the people like they're playing the game a little bit there. With the screen time.
Yeah, I absolutely hear what you're saying. And I'm guessing if they're just counting 3 minutes, they're going literal, like they're being very literal about it with the screen time. As soon as it cuts away, we're stopping
Yeah,
our stopwatch
yeah,
here.
they're doing the stopwatch thing. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is all I have for you on the fun facts. So if you have nothing more for that, do you wanna dig into your favorite character of Jurassic Park 3?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Favorite character? I mean, hands down, it's got to be Dr. Alan Grant. I mean, Sam Neill's too likable. He's too fun. It, I don't want to be like, oh, it's a shame that he's doing this one, but it's like you wish that his return would have been accompanied by a little bit of a higher tier effort, but it's nice to see him back and leading the movie and really for all intents and purposes no Ellie and no Malcolm. And the whole time he's the expert and he gets to be, the guy in charge and to kind of say like we shouldn't have come here. This is a bad idea. Don't do this. Listen to me. It's nice to see.
Absolutely, and that's the character I went with as well because it was a pleasant surprise. I don't remember as a kid like what my like first seeing the commercials or previews or trailers for this film. So like I went into it and getting Alan Grant back was like a pleasant surprise as a kid. Like oh like he was in the first one. Like oh she was in the first one too. And then in theaters I was wondering like all right where's Dr. Malcolm and clearly he wasn't in this one. So it's like all right we get two of the three back. And then after the first like 10 minutes of the film Ellie Sattler's character, she's gone. So it's like, all right, well, we got one of our original trio back. And I
I
think
will,
he's fun.
and yeah, and I'll never forgive them for him and Ellie, like for not having them end up in this movie together. I remember like the slow realization watching the movie of everyone being like, "Oh, they're not together." Like it's like what? Like it's sort of doing like the subversive thing before the subversive thing was very popular. It's like, oh, you think they're going to end up together? No, she's got some other husband and she moved on from Alan. And oh, you think the T Rex is all awesome and super bad and cool? Well, the Spinosaurus is here and it's going to make the T Rex look like a joke. It's like, like, the a lower tier version of the Last Jedi of its day.
Well, and that I guess I didn't really understand that as a kid too much, but like I thought they were together, and then like he's there playing with the little boy with the dinosaur toys, and then her husband comes in and she's like, "Oh, hey, honey," and it's like, "Oh, okay, well that's a kind of just spoiled the beginning of the movie for me. Like I thought these two were gonna end up together for sure, but I like Alan Grant. I like him in this film, and I like him and Billy. I like their relationship. That they're a good duo in this film. I almost picked Billy, but he doesn't have like enough lines of dialogue. Like you can tell he's definitely just meant to be a side character, even though he's like Alan Grant, like he's like his sidekick in this film.
It would have been really cool, and I don't think the ages really would have lined up. But if Tim had grown up to be Grant's assistant for this movie, and they got that actor back, like that would have been cool.
I would not have been against that at all,
Yeah,
since
I
he
mean,
he's dealt with the dinosaurs almost as much.
yeah, I think even for like the 4 year gap to the second film, then the 4 year gap to this film, I think he still would have been a little on the young side for Billy's character exactly, but maybe there's a version of reality where something like that could have been conjured up and it could have been pretty cool.
Where this is 10 years after, the Lost World, something like
Yeah,
that, where
it's
he's
something,
like
yeah.
early 20s or so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would have been a nice little, continuity connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. So clearly, we're on the same page for our favorite character. I'll give you my favorite score. And when I originally listened to this score when I was doing the research for this film a while back, and I listened to it on Spotify. And my original choice for my favorite score was the opening. It was called the Isla Sorna sailing situation, and I re-listened to it today while I was at work, had my headphones and my earbuds in, and I actually chose it's a title called Billy Oblivion. It's after he saves Eric, and he's parasailing and he actually gets caught on the rock, and that's where it like immediately kicks in, and it's from there on out until he's getting attacked by the pteranodons, and it's just like kind of like a very like almost high octane, like it sounds like it's a very intense score, and I liked that, and I liked the pteranodon scene that accompanied with it, so I ended up choosing that one over my original choice of the open kind of opening theme.
Yeah, that's a great sequence and a great score, and I'll say, respect to Don Davis. He's no John Williams, but the man is a great composer. He composed the Matrix trilogy, and that's some absolutely fantastic composition work. And so, the man is insanely talented, but, is he the perfect fit for Jurassic Park 3? He does a really, really good job. It's hard to be John Williams, but he does a surprisingly effective job. It feels of a whole with with the kind of work John Williams does, just maybe just a bit more propulsive, a bit more, high octane in general. And the track that I went with is actually a track called Raptor Room, where it's when they're going into the InGen compound and into the room where they're seeing the different raptors in the test tubes and whatnot, the incubation tubes. And so it's got this very slow sort of delicate kind of awe-inspiring kind of music, and then it switches on a dime into the raptor attack. And that the music of that sequence, in both aspects of it, the slower part and the more intense part, it just always stuck out to me as a kid. Always like perfectly complements the scene, in my opinion. So that's the track I went with.
Yeah, re-listening to this soundtrack today, it kind of surprised me. I liked it more than I thought I would re-listening to it, and it's not a bad complete soundtrack as a whole. And like you said, you can probably never measure up to John Williams, but he does his damnedest in this one. I will give him credit for that. It's not a bad soundtrack at all.
Absolutely.
So what was your favorite quote or most memorable line from the film? I only had 2 from this film, so I'll let you go ahead.
Oh gosh, I have a lot that I could pick, or at least a lot of lines that I like. The jokes in this movie are some of the best parts of the dialogue, but to pick the simplest one, there's an exchange where Amanda says, "This is how you make dinosaurs," and Dr. Grant says, "No, this is how you play God." And that is, sum it all up in one sentence for us, please. That dialogue exchange does it pretty well, and I like that a lot. Like, yes, there are some things men is not meant to tamper with, and so I like that moral of the story.
And that is also one of the ones I chose. So if you'd like to give a couple more, feel free, and then I'll give you my favorite one from the film.
The greatest line of all time, Alan. no, no, that I so there's a couple of them. I like the there's this great little exchange. When he says, Paul Kirby says, he said we needed someone who'd been on the island before. He goes, yes, but I did not tell you to kidnap somebody. And Grant says, I have never been on this island. He says, sure you have. You wrote that book. And Billy just goes, that was Isla Nublar. This is Isla Sorna, Site B. And then Udesky goes, you mean there are 2 islands with dinosaurs on them? just playing the audience member that doesn't really track or know exactly like the lore. A lot of casual moviegoers might just be like, oh yeah, that's the island with the dinosaurs. That's the island. Like, it's one island. And it's like, huh? Like, what? There's 2 islands with dinosaurs on them? And then and later on they get this great moment where they ask Udesky, like, what should we do? He goes, well, you search for your son in the direction that they're going. so I like a lot of Udesky's lines. If we split up, I'm going with you guys. Talking to Grant and Billy.
And that's right. As Amanda and Paul are fighting, so I definitely appreciate that one. He has a certain tone that he says these quotes with that make them funny.
Oh, it's perfect.
My favorite one is it comes from Billy, and this is only my favorite because I remember them saying this when I was in theaters as a kid, and I was like, what? No way, like, bull crap. And you hear the Spinosaurus roar from a distance, And Billy goes, "That's a Tyrannosaurus." And Alan responds, "I don't think so. It sounds bigger." So in theaters, I'm thinking, what? Like, what's bigger than a T-Rex? Like, are you kidding me? And it was like, I didn't want to believe it as a young kid. So that one got like a really big reaction out of me when I was younger. So I've always remembered that one.
Yeah, and it was a hype moment that was in every trailer. Little aside here: when I was a kid, as many kids did, that grew up in this generation in the shadow of Jurassic Park, I spent a decent amount of my book fare money on dinosaur books of this degree or that degree, and it was always fun looking at the pictures of dinosaurs and reading about dinosaurs. And I remember there was one of them. It was a small little like floppy little kind of almost a booklet, maybe 20, 30 pages, something like that, and of dinosaurs and one of them in it was baryonyx. And I remember something about that one always stuck in my brain as far as like every kid knew the dinosaurs that were in the Jurassic Park movies, but like that was one that like it always like stuck out to me. And when I saw this movie in theaters and he's postulating about what the Spinosaurus is, and then he says baryonyx and he goes snout. It was like hearing like your favorite like character get name dropped in a movie or something. I was like, I know the baryonyx, I know that, like it was like such a moment. I was like, they put that reference in just for me, like it was so fun.
I was one of those nerds too. I had all the books. I used to get like the zoo books and all those type of books. Anything with dinosaurs and animals, I was all for it. But definitely when he said baryonyx, I like I said, I was 7, 8 years old or so when this came out, 8, 9, somewhere around there. And I don't think there were a lot of books with information on the Spinosaurus, or I just didn't. I always flipped to the page with the T-Rex. I might not have paid attention to it. So when it came about in theaters, of course, I was like, what the hell is that? Until they said Spinosaurus, and like after that, we went. I started looking more into books and trying to learn more about these new dinosaurs and things like that.
Yeah, that was always a fun moment for me.
Well, before we go into our favorite scene, I remember this is the film that I believe it was right after this. Did you ever play Jurassic Park Operation Genesis? I feel like you
I actually never played any of the Jurassic video games.
No, really.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think there was one of them like an arcade shooter that was like in one of the movie theater lobbies that we went to as a kid. So I played that a little bit. At least I'm wanting to say that. But no, I never played any of the Jurassic video games. No.
The Operation Genesis was like the first Jurassic Park game where you could like build your own park and stuff like that. You could release dinosaurs into the same enclosure. So after this movie, I would always like beef up my T-Rex in the game and release him and the Spinosaurus together and make him kill the Spinosaurus. So
We're gonna set things right here.
we're gonna show you who's the true king.
Gonna give the T-Rex some performance enhancing drugs.
Exactly. And then you could like let them free like amongst the park and let them eat the patrons and all that stuff. Like it was it's kind of it was honestly almost like a more fun version of the new Jurassic World Evolution games that came out a couple years ago.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say that quick bit, but I will get into my favorite scene. I have two of them, like one for kind of just nostalgia memory, and then one for being just like my hands down favorite of the film. And of course, my nostalgia one is the T-Rex and Spinosaurus fight. It's such a quick fight, but it's still awesome to see like the T-Rex slam the Spinosaurus to the ground. And like I said, it's one of those scenes that shocks you. You think you know the outcome, and they pull a 180 on you, and the Spinosaurus gets the better of the T-Rex. So due to like shock value when I was a kid, and the Spinosaurus actually beating the T-Rex, that was like my nostalgia pick, or like one of the main reason I picked that scene is because it made me become more interested in what the Spinosaurus was. And clearly, like I said, the T-Rex is still my favorite, but this film got me interested in the Spinosaurus. So I'll let you go, and then I'll mention my second one that is truly my favorite of the film.
Yeah, for me it was it's the Pteranodon sequence in the birdcage. It's just one of those where for the first two movies, like you always kind of like and especially in the first movie, you kind of see the pteranodons like at the end of the movie, and you just always think like, man, like there's just a ripe sequence waiting to happen with those things kind of going after it. And so this movie kind of fulfilled that promise, and like they sort of like they squeeze the lemon on it. It's in a giant bird cage. When that thing crosses across the bridge and comes out of the smoke, it's like this great visual moment, with the silhouette, and then it plucks you up. And like as a kid, like the idea of like it like plucked up out of the sky from something is just like horrifying. And he's dropped into the nest, and then they start pecking away at Billy. Like to me, like it's just such a like that's just like they really kind of were like, look, we're gonna do a pteranodon sequence. We're gonna have as much fun as possible with the pteranodon sequence, and I love it.
And I'm glad you brought that one up because rewatching it, I I still knew about the scene, and I've seen this film so many times that I was like, I remembered the basis of it. And listening to the soundtrack today, the couple soundtracks, I believe there's two of them during that scene that play over, and I could like visualize in my head what was going on. And when I on the rewatch, I really enjoyed that scene individually for the film, but the one I chose was for like my hands down favorite that I wanted to mention was the river attack, the Spinosaurus river attack. So I like how they kind of see like the fish get spooked and like they're having trouble starting the boat, and then you just see the Spinosaurus's fin or sail kind of rise up out of the water like an homage to like a shark or like Jaws,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the whole attack scene. And I thought that entire scene was done well with him like calling Ellie and trying to get a hold of her, and through the phone he's yelling like
Oh,
Ellie,
it's
like the
excruciating to watch when you were a kid. Of like you just want that little kid to take that phone straight to her and for the help to come. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Please.
we can watch Barney later. Like
Yeah,
like as kids we understand that, but like
yeah, yeah,
him saying like the river site B, and then like they
yeah.
go underwater, and you're wondering if any of our main characters are going to get killed here because it's a very intense scene. And I think it's the Spinosaurus in all its like shining glory of the film. It's dark, it's raining, and I think the Spinosaurus looks really good in that scene. So that was the one I chose as my absolute favorite for the film.
Good choice. Good choice.
So that is all I have. I mean, if we wanna talk about some final thoughts on Jurassic Park 3, talk about the film we're gonna be doing next week, and head on out of here to get ready for the next episode.
Yeah, I'd say that I agree with Sam Neill that it's a pretty damn good movie. Not a pretty great movie. Pretty darn good. I I'm confused by the fact that there's a movie called Jurassic Park 3 when there's no such thing as a movie called Jurassic Park 2. But I think it's the dumbest. I think it's a dumb. I always think it's dumb when franchises do the thing where they aren't using sequel numbers and then they start using sequel numbers. It's like, okay, uh, not to come down on it at the end here, but it's like it's just got some flaws. Like it's just kind of a hodgepodgey kind of movie. It just doesn't have, in the same way that there's not a lot to hate about it. It's like it's just not kind of amazing. So I mean, if you wanted to talk about it, we could talk about how we're ranking the films so far of the three, where we would have them, and I'll let you take the lead on that.
All right, I'll pop into that before I give my final thoughts. And I mean, it's not hard for me, and I hate to say like this is the worst one of the three, but it is the worst one. I mean, if you're going from your in my order, my least favorite to favorite, it would be Jurassic Park 3, The Lost World Jurassic Park, and then the original Jurassic Park, clearly the best.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. That's exactly my list. There's parts of three that I can enjoy more than parts of two. I think visually, for example, like the overall color palette and cinematography, it's easier to look at Jurassic Park 3. And I know that sounds weird, but everything is so brown and green, like so brown and green and gray in the Lost World that it becomes kind of like it's kind of an eyesore in a weird way. Like it's not a really appealing movie to look at for me. and this one's, it's got like more blues, and the green feels a bit more like vivid and alive, and it's just, the color palette just seems stronger, and Lost World doesn't really have that. But generally speaking, pretty much, like, there's no sequence in this movie that is anywhere near, the cliffhanger, hang off the cliff sequence in The Lost World. There's nothing in this movie that is as awesome and fun as a T-Rex in a city in The Lost World. It just, The Lost World might have some lower lows, but I also think it has some higher highs, and I think the baseline generally is stronger. And also, it doesn't have this thing where it's called Jurassic Park 3 and there's no Jurassic Park 2, which is kind of annoying, but there you go.
So what would you prefer? Like, if you could retitle this, what would you have for us if you got one?
Oh hell, I don't know. I don't know. Something not 3 though. You could call it Jurassic Park. I don't know. I don't know what you call it. Probably any generic kind of sequel name. Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
but not just Jurassic Park 3.
Jurassic Park Return to Isla Sorna or something.
Yeah, Jurassic Park Wilderness, Jurassic Park, Savage something or the other. There's any number of generic things. Jurassic Park Deserted. I don't know. Any sort of generic things would have just been better as a subtitle than Jurassic Park 3.
Well, if the original Jurassic Park is a A+, I would say the Lost World is like a solid A, maybe A-, and then this one's probably like a solid B minus. Like, it's not too far of a drop off, but it's a drop off.
Indeed, I'd agree with that.
So I mean, but I still have fun with this. I think this is a good Jurassic Park film. I mean, even this Jurassic Park film, if you consider it the worst of the franchise, it's still better than probably 80% of the other dinosaur ripoff movies that came after Jurassic Park or just before. So, I mean, you can still have fun with it. It's a quick 90 minutes, like Chris said, instead of 2 hours or a little over 2 hours. So, I mean, it's a quicker paced film. And I mean, the only downside for me is that the Spinosaurus is the antagonist instead of the T-Rex. But I do love the Spinosaurus as well. So this film's still fun for me, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's still really good. It's just the worst of the 3 so far.
So far, we will see what our next trilogy has in store for us, because on our next episode, we will begin that next trilogy, because this was followed by a sequel, or some have said a franchise reboot, with Jurassic World released almost 14 years later, or just under 14 years later, on June 12th of 2015. So we will be looking at that on our next episode. So, Chris, before we get out of here, of course, I will say thank you for joining me on Jurassic Park 3, because this was a fun one. I didn't know kind of where we would differentiate on this film, or like what we would have to say about this one. I didn't know where you would stand on it being so high on the first one and kind of mediocre on the second one. So I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, it's always fun. This is the one that kind of like, I remember, The Lost World is one of the first movies I remember waiting in line in theaters to see. But this was sort of that, when you're kind of like 9 to 12 year age range, I think is like a really big one in terms of like a lot of the memories I have of going to the movies and it feeling like very like, you're old enough to kind of be aware and appreciate it, but still young enough where everything is kind of awesome. And this is one of those like highlight memories for me. It was just a fun trip to the movies, and I saw it twice, and like I loved it both times.
Absolutely. This was the first Jurassic Park film I was able to see in theaters, so that makes it a fond memory for myself.
Yeah, it's it's good times,
Absolutely.
Give it a little love, everybody. Give it a little love, and looking forward to next week talking about a better entry in the series.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for joining me. Thanks to anyone who's out there listening. We have Jurassic World on our next episode, but until next time,
have a good one.
This is how you make dinosaurs?
No. This is how you play God.